Welcome back, everybody. Wow. We're getting more stuff done in the cold. What we have to do now is we have to kind of finish up all the part that we need to actually make the fuel injection system work on this car. We're converting from CIS to basically an electronic fuel injection system. What do we have to do? Well, we have to feed the injectors, and that means have a fuel rail. Now, you can go out and buy blanks and all that other stuff and cut them and do all that, but you know what? It's just not something I want to do because I want to try and make this thing look like it was the original. You know, yes, a lot of things don't look like the original on it, but a lot of things are, and I'm trying to get as close as I can. So if I have all the bits and pieces to make a fuel rail that actually look like the original, I'm going to give it a shot. What's the worst that can happen? I have to buy all the new stuff and cut it in the mill and all that and make it work. You know what? I have to do it, but I'd much rather get a fuel rail that actually looks like the original, and if it works, hey, we won, you know? So what it is, I'm going to let me show you some pictures of the original fuel rail on the rally cars, and then we'll go from there. Here's a picture of the Audi Rally motor. There are the 5 injectors. There's the fuel rail sitting on top of them. You can see that's a square fuel rail. At least it looks like it to me. And if you take a look on the front part of the motor to the right side or the left side of the picture or the right side of the actual engine bay, let me bring it over to another picture. There it is. Next to the air cleaner is a control pressure regulator. What does that look like to me? Well, you have to remember, this is in the 80s, and they had a lot of coordination with Porsche because it's in the same Volkswagen Audi group. What it is, I guarantee you, they probably made that rail from a 944 rail. And you're probably sitting going, how do you think that? Well, because this is a 944 turbo rail. If you take a look at this, where the injectors are, and the control pressure regulator. The control pressure regulator, you can see here where the intake manifold goes right to the control pressure regulator for the vacuum tube or for the pressure tube is right here. Then you have this line right here with a fire sleeve on it. Well, this one also has a fire sleeve, but another fire sleeve right here, which is the return line to the fuel tank, which is this right here, because it goes into the fuel rail. What I'm going to do is adapt this 944 turbo fuel rail to that. All right, you're probably saying, well, why are you destroying a perfectly good 944 turbo fuel rail? Because I marked this one. This was off of my car, my 951S. And I kept smelling fuel, couldn't find it. Injectors weren't leaking, nothing was leaking. Until I found out, I pulled the injector rail off and I saw this is leaking where this mount is welded to this rail. It basically cracked and pulled it. And what happened is it was leaking on internally in the mount and just sliding down here so you couldn't see it. So anybody with a 944 turbo, if you smell fuel, check your mounts. Now, we don't have enough injector cups here to support 5 cylinders. But what we got to do is we have to have a donor. And this is what I have for a donor. This came off a 944. This is a normally aspirated one. You can tell how they did their setup. This was an early one. This is off of an 83. And I have all the injector cups I can cut out of here and put onto this rail and weld them on. At least that's what I'm going to try and do. All right, first things first, let's pull off the intake manifold and we can start trying to figure out what we need to cut, where we need to cut, and how to make it all work. So at least that's what the plan is. All right, let's pull off the intake manifold. This will give us our position of our injectors. I still have to clean them all up to make it actually equal. Right here is where the control pressure regulator came out, and if I can do it right there, that way we have our known position where all the injectors are going to be. We do have a little bit of leeway back and forth, but what I need to do is clean up all this, roll my TIG welder over here, and just tack in where this is going to be, then final TIG weld it. After I do that, pull this off easy. When these things are tacked on here, I'm going to take a center punch and drill it out to that exact same hole that's inside there. So the injectors should fit. All right, let me clean this all up with a wheel and clean up all of this, and then we will get on to tacking it on, welding it on, and then I'll fill the holes. Then we'll get on to doing the injectors. Well, I think I've gotten all the big chunks off. Here's the fuel rail. We have it all set up for the injectors. They're all pretty much flat and straight. We have to close this end off next. I can use the original if I wanted to, though the original cap welded on there, and it would be fine. But seeing how it's open anyway, you know what? I'm going to add something that I think, well, we're going to have anyway, and that's a fuel pressure sensor. All right, now you're probably wondering, okay, well, is this the reason why you're putting it there is because it's open? Well, kinda. I'm gonna have to weld it anyway, but it's actually the best place to put it because you're gonna get the highest pressure down here at the front of the rail supposedly, you know, and the lowest pressure at the end of the rail because of all the injectors taking that fuel. Whether or not it's gonna be correct or not, or my assumption is correct or not, is another thing. But the big thing is we'll know exactly what the fuel pressure is on the entire rail at this point, which is at the end of the rail after all the fuel injectors have taken the pressure from it. Now, what am I going to use? Well, to start off, I'm going to use this. This is from a Corrado G60. This is a fuel pressure sensor off of that. Now, I went into my little jar of bushings that I collect because every single bushing I find, all the metal ones go into one jar, all the aluminum ones go into another one. And I found this. This is right here is an M8 bushing of some sort. I have no idea what it came off of, but you know what? It's flat and it's straight and it's machine cut. The good thing is two things. First thing, it goes on the end and covers the entire end, so I can just weld it right on. It should look pretty decent. Second, take a look at how deep this sensor is. If you put this right here, it goes right to the very end, so there's no obstruction of the sensor. That, to me, is actually pretty big. Also, it's absolutely flat machine cut on a lathe. We have to make sure this thing goes in exactly straight and sits exactly flat because there's a copper sealing washer that goes on here that seals everything. It's not an MPT fitting. So if this goes on here and it's a little bit out of sync, it's going to leak. So I got to put this in my lathe. I got to drill it out with a drill, and I got to tap it with a tap, and that way we have an absolute flat or a flat surface for this thing to rest on. And then I'll go and I'll put this on and zip it on, and then we'll get on to making the inlet for the fuel going in, because I don't want this style of inlet. So let me bring this thing over to the lathe and let me set it up, and we'll cut this right up. Here, check it out. Absolutely flat all the way around. No, it's equal all the way around, so I'm really happy about that. Now what I have to do is clean it up, and as you can see, this is where the hole is for the sensor. There's nothing obstructing it. I got to clean up this side, put it on this side, and weld it on. Now, on this side where the inlet for the fuel is, this is what the Germans used. The Germans used an inverted flare. Unlike every piece of machinery or anything you can get where you're going to convert the thing into a AN fitting or a JIC fitting, which is basically the same thing, I am going to put a standard hose barb on this. And you're probably wondering, huh, okay, will it handle the pressure? Well, if Subaru thinks it can handle the pressure, I think it can handle the pressure. Now, what I'm going to do is I will cut this off, open up the hole, and put a fitting on there to accept the hose barb fitting. You're probably wondering, all right, what in your little bag of tricks have you come up with to make it work? Well, I don't know if it's going to work, but check this out. This right here is off the top of the AC compressor, and as you can tell by the rust, the AC compressor had seen better days, and I just took it apart and I use it for something. But what it is that I'm going to cut this shield off, this crimp connection, take the rubber off, and use that fitting right there, which is a standard barb fitting. It has a huge shoulder right here. I'm going to cut this off right there. The internal portion looks, probably, quarter inch or whatever, but the external looks like about 3/8. And that's kind of the lines we're going to be using, is 3/8 or 5/16. So it should be more than adequate. What I got to do is I got to get my stuff back on and cut this up and prepare it to get it put onto this side right here. That way we have hose ends on one end and a fuel pressure sensor on the other. We have the pressure regulator and the return line that comes off of that, so we should be completely set. All right, let me get my stuff on, cut this off, and let's see if we can make it work. Fits gorgeous. I love it. All right, what do we have? We have a fuel rail. We have all the injector cups. We have the fuel pressure sensor right there. We have the control pressure regulator, the return, and we have the inlet right here, a barb fitting. It goes on really, really nice. And when you have the electronic injectors, it'll set it up like this. So it's going to clear the cam cover, and you can just put the clip on, or the connector on here. Next thing we have to do, well, I got to pull all these injectors, and we got to pull the injector cups out of here. So let me go. I got to go make a small tool to do this, because I haven't. The one that I had before broke a long, long time ago, and I haven't pulled CIS injectors out of my head in a little while. So let me go grab. Let me go make a tool, pull this out, and we will continue on with trying to install the electronic injectors into the head. First things first, we're going to be making the injector puller for a CIS car. Now, what you're going to run into is you're going to run into a couple of different types of injectors. Two of them are ones that this one will fit, one of them isn't. All right, now the early injectors, the very early injectors are this. They're basically will be a non-emissions injector. They look, they don't have anything extra down here, and they just have one seal right there, and all it is a just a standard, CIS injector. The second one is this one right here. You see this little cap right there? That's an air shroud. what happens, from what I know, is that air basically atomizes the mix, or atomizes the stream of fuel coming out of this thing better. I don't really know if it works. I really didn't really get it. You know, I'm sitting there going, I'm not really sure that it should do that, but I mean, I don't know. I never really saw the benefit in a normally aspirated car. I can see it in a turbocharged car, but I can't really see it in a normally aspirated car. But you know, who am I to say? Now, another one you'll get is these things right here. This is from a 4000 Quattro. This is from a late 5000, early 200, I believe. What this is take a look at the thread pitch. That is a 10 by 1 thread. Now, all the earlier ones are like this. That's 12 by 1.5. So if you're making an injector puller, make sure you get the cap that matches your injectors. This is 12 by 1.5. All I'm going to be doing is cutting this cap. This is a steel cap. Just cutting this thing off, using some 3/8 rod, cleaning it. It's either going to be onto this right here, which is just a small slide hammer, or if the O-rings are so petrified, the reason why I'm using this 3/8 rod, I'll show you how to get them out. It's not a nice way to do it, but it'll get them out. All right. Next thing, let me get my stuff back on so I can clean up all this stuff, weld up this cap onto this, and we can get those injectors out of there. Then we'll worry about getting the injector bungs out. I think they're petrified. Oh, God. All right. Second chime. Oh, wow. We're going to do my other side, my other thing. Well, those are your 5 rotted injectors. It was fairly easy to do, but it's just not nice when you're doing it on the thing. So even you can't even get the O-rings out because they're so petrified. Here it is. It's just, they're hard as plastic. Oh, man. All right, let me get the tool to try and get these injector bungs out. But I'm not having any hope on it because you sit there and look at these things and it's just like, it's terrible. All these injector bungs are in with a 14, you can use a 14 millimeter hex head. Now, you can sit there and look at it. These are a little bit of play to them. And it's, I have no, how can I put this? No confidence that these things are going to come out. Nope. Nope. They're just spinning. Well, next. Well, I thought that was going to be a lot easier. On the earlier ones, I never knew this, but I have another head over there, and it has the early injectors, and that's pretty much what we're going to use. for a head, but not this one. This one is also another experiment because I'm not going to use this motor. This was made out of brass and composite material. The other ones, like the original injectors with the non-air shrouds, were made out of just the composite materials. I mean, when you drill it out, it takes 2 seconds, drills them right out. I'm sitting there going, this is awful. So if you guys are going to use like an 85 and above head, guess what? Or an 84 and above head, I think it is. I can't remember which one when they went to these. It's going to suck. It's going to suck royally. But the only thing I care about is this edge right down here. There is the external part where it threads in and where it seats, and then you have the injector going in here. Well, that seat where it threads in to compress, that's the only thing I care about. Now, what am I using for injectors? Well, take a look at these. Now, take a look at the picture up here. Look pretty similar? Yeah. Well, these are out of a stock Cosworth Sierra. And what it is, I'm looking at it going, I mean, do I know they're going to work? No, I don't know. I have no idea. I mean, will it run the car? Yeah, but not very well. But who knows? I don't know. I'll know when I get there. But what it is, we need to get these to fit in like that. And to sit up a little bit just to get around, or go like this, or go like that. I'll probably go like that. But and what do I have? Well, I just have these old aluminum bushings that were cut up. Looks like an M8 in the center. But what it is they're wider than the injector, so I can cut them down. I can cut them down to fit them inside here. I'm going to create a step just like I did on the R5 Turbo. I'm just going to use a standard off run-of-the-mill O-ring for like 5 cents to go in there, because I'm going to use the center O-ring on this injector right here. I'm going to drill it down only so far, so just this cap sticks out. That way it seals with the injector, and this seals that step for the O-ring, seals the bunk. So we don't need anything else. We don't need any threads. We don't need anything. We just need the fuel roll to hold this thing down so the seal compresses against the sidewalls and creates, you know, no vacuum leaks or pressure leaks. All right, let me first measure everything up here. I'll do the measurements, and then we'll start cutting one of these things up, and pretty much, yeah, I'm just gonna cut it up and just make it work. You know, that's about it. All right, yeah, let me start doing that. Let me go get some of my tools so I can measure this out, and there we go. We have the cam cover on. We have these mounts on also. I bolted this thing down without the gasket because all of these studs on here have steps that prevent it from going any further than it can if the gasket is on there, so it doesn't squish out the cork gasket. We've run into our first problem. First problem is this. I cut these mounts off of this right here to attach the fuel rail. There's two problems actually. If you take a look at this, the amount of surface area that's on the bottom of the Porsche mount and what the Audi mount has. And if you look at it, it doesn't cover it fully. And if I'm going to all this trouble, I want full coverage to give me the most amount of support on this mount. There's also another big problem that I totally forgot about. Looking at these from the top of my head, I thought they were M6s, because this is drilled for an M6. These are M5s. So guess what? We're throwing them away. What did I do? I went out into the pile. I found an old melt. It has capture nuts on the back, all M6s, and it has tons of surface area where this thing can rest on, and it has less of a propensity to go back and forth. Let me clean this thing up, get it prepared. Let's see if we can weld it onto here and make it all work. So it actually is stable and will hold this thing down inside. There we are. We have the inlet, we have the fuel rail, we have the mounts, we have the injectors. Fuel pressure sensor, fuel return, fuel pressure regulator. Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. Take a look at this picture. This is what I'm trying to emulate. And this is what it is. And I think I'm pretty close. I am like ecstatic at what this looks like. Is it gonna work? Yeah, who knows? It's like, how many leaks am I gonna have? I don't know. But the thing is, I'll just chase them, fix them, weld them, do whatever I need to do, and I'll make it work. Will the injectors work with the injection system? Your guess is as good as mine. But they look cool right now. Yeah, because this is all going into the engine that's over there that came out of the 81 coupe, the 5+5. So, and I know that's a good running engine. It's an early one, and I think it's going to look the part until we blow it up. But I have one, in our quattro motor that I can build up anyway. Yeah, I mean, this is actually looking really cool. I really like it. I mean, it's just a couple of old 944 intake rails, fuel rails, and some old, Bosch injectors. I mean, they came out of a Cosworth, but, they're all the same. Bosch injectors, Bosch injector. But, yeah, thanks again for showing up. I really appreciate it. Remember, you can do any of this. I'm just some hillbilly freezing up here in New Hampshire. And I think this is final. This is it. This is all we need to do to get this thing to run supposedly with the injection system that I'm going to be using. We will see. But I don't know what I'm going to do next time, but I am really ecstatic about this. And yeah, I mean, we have, the shift linkage done, and we have this done. Now I just have to I have to, pull this off, clean up all the bad welds. I got to clean up all that stuff, reinforce all the brackets that I need to do and make sure it's all squared away. And then I can transfer it over to the other motor and put that in the car, or at least be ready to put that in the car. So, but yeah, I think this is freaking cool. All right. Well, thanks again for showing up. Remember, you can do this. Trust me, you can do it. All right. I hope you have a great day. Bye now.